Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got a lot to unpack today. We've got the post-Fed meeting reaction along with the double whammy of the Consumer Price Index data getting released last week. We've got another MLS, the fourth MLS, pushing back against this lawsuit here, MLS Pin, and they've got some very interesting things to say in the second segment about the DOJ and what the DOJ is proposing. And lastly, we've got Aaron Hall coming in from Painter One of the main line to talk about all the services they offer. He's got a real crew, a real business. He shows up on time, gets things done, so excited to chat with him as well. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, and Sarah specifically, she knows what she's doing, you want to make sure you click on the link in the comments. So I'm sure you watched the entire press conference with Jerome Powell, right? Is that?
Oh,
of course. Right. Streaming live in the Tymon Hogue household. But in all seriousness, so Jerome Powell came out, spoke last week. They had the Fed meeting. They are maintaining the current federal funds rate. And more importantly, I think this is not like a surprise if you've been following this, but they finally said it, that there's only going to be one rate cut expected this year from the Federal Reserve. We also had the Consumer Price Index data come in below expectation. If you don't know what that is, that's basically the cost of goods and what people pay. And that caused the market to rally. The Dow Jones went up. Mortgage rates came down a little bit. The 10-year yield went down. So what do you think about all this, Sarah? What's your outlook on the rest of the year now that we know that the Fed is revising their plans when it comes to the federal fund rate and rate cuts in 2024?
Right. I mean, I think what we've been pretty clear on for the last, several months is that the rate cuts, because at the beginning of the year, they were predicting there could be like 6. And then it was like,
I think the Fed said 3, but some people did say 6.
Yeah.
Which I did not believe. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Right. So, they had been kind of revising. They'd been like holding off. And the longer that you hold off, the less opportunities there are throughout the year for these rate cuts to occur. So I am not surprised. And, we'll see if they even give us one.
I think you're going to get one by the end of the year. But if you look at like the dot plot, so this is very interesting. If you don't know what the dot plot is, it's basically what all the voting members of the Federal Reserve, they tell you where they think the rate should be. And it becomes like this big chart. And what the dot plot indicates is that we're going to see 2025 as a much more aggressive rate cutting environment, although a lot of people think it's going to be shorter than what we've seen in the past. What this tells me is that all these people that have been saying, I'm waiting for rates to come down, I'm waiting for the market to move in my favor when it comes from an affordability standpoint, you're going to be waiting a long time. Because even if they do cut rates next year, a lot of experts are saying that it's going to be a shorter rate cutting cycle, so we may not see a lot of rate cuts in 2025. So, this is kind of expected. And what I also got from this is that the Fed is not deviating from their 2% target, that they are clear that they want to get to 2% when it comes to inflation. And there was a lot of questions that got asked after the press conference. I'm going to read a couple of the quotes here for you, Sarah. I want to kind of get your reaction here. So the first one was from the opening statement. And it said, my colleagues and I, this is from Jerome Powell, are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher cost of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. In support of these goals, the committee decided today to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5%. So he mentions housing there, but then there was some questions. This is what I want the reaction to. Michael McKee from Bloomberg, is there any kind of concern for housing or financial stability and banks in leaving rates where they are for too long? And Jerome Powell said the housing situation's complicated, and you need to see that's a place where rates are really having a significant effect. Ultimately, the best thing we can do for the housing market is to bring inflation down so that we can bring rates down so that the housing market can continue to normalize. This will still be there will still be a national housing shortage as there was before the pandemic. There will still be one, but this distorts that we see now with lock-ins and things like that, low mortgages. And he goes on to talk about that. So what do you think about this comment here? I mean, I thought this was pretty interesting, but I want to get your reaction.
I mean, it makes sense. I think that when they go in and just adjust things and make a lot of shifts there on the back end, it causes uncertainty within the market. And I do agree that while like their target goal of where they want inflation to be at might be difficult to hit, bringing cost of goods down and then slowly tapering in the, being able to reduce the rate is like long term, I think, a plan that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that the issue here is we've got an inventory problem, right? And I think he acknowledged that. So I think that does make sense. I mean, they're just basically, what I take away from this is like, hey, housing's like an issue, but inflation's the bigger issue. And housing doesn't seem like it's going to, we're not going to see rates come down at all. And if they do, like if you get into a 4%, 5% rate environment, I think one of the questions you want to ask as an agent, if someone says this to you, is like, hey, so what do you understand about what happens when rates get that low? Then someone's going to say, I don't know, or whatever. The last time that happened was a global pandemic and a financial meltdown. And if rates are going that low, that means there's economic crisis, which probably means housing prices are going down. So I think you really want to explain that to people, and that's probably one of the easier things to walk folks through. And then it's going to come down to if someone's actually motivated or not to actually make a move. And that's really what this is. I mean, I think we're past the, hey, rates are low, I'm buying a house sort of era that we were in. And I don't see the Fed really changing anytime soon. And we've seen some reactions, right? So like Fannie Mae, they changed their rate predictions a couple weeks ago. We've seen that if you look at Zillow and Moody's, they updated their home price forecasts, not ECasts. And they're predicting that, Zillow's looking at home prices actually going down 1.2%. Moody's is predicting an increase of 0.4%. That's obviously at a national level. It's going to be stronger in the Northeast than it is in the South, where Texas is above pre-pandemic inventory levels right now. Florida sees a lot of rising inventory. So I just look at this as like, this is just the next market cycle that we're going through, and it's finally going the other way. And the Fed seems to be okay with that because people aren't losing their jobs and the other things that we saw that happened in like 2008 or the pandemic for that matter.
Right. But I mean, wasn't one of their sticking points earlier that they wanted a high unemployment rate? Well,
they wanted a higher unemployment rate. And I think, that unemployment rate's misleading because you got like part-time workers in there that are factored in. So, and the jobs market's been really strong. I mean, if you look at the May numbers, they added a lot more jobs than expected. So, I mean, for someone that, we're like looking to hire people, like it's tough hiring people right now. So there's that's going on as well. I'm just clear this is the market we're going to get. Like there's no, like Jerome Powell's not going to save real estate agents.
Right.
He's not going to save consumers. The people said if we finally got inventory, remember how many times you say this? If there's only some inventory, well, now we got it, and you have longer market cycles. You got to have price adjustment conversations with sellers. You've got to work with buyers longer. So this is just what real estate was like before the pandemic, and a lot of people are, it's 4 years later now.
Right.
Which is incredible that we're saying, like, isn't that wild to think how long that was?
Yeah.
This is just what we're dealing with. So, you're dealing with buyers and sellers every day. What's your advice to them right now? Because I don't see the market really changing too much. This is kind of where we are. I mean, rates have come down. They're stable. It's predictable. What are you saying to folks?
Right. I mean, you give them what we know right now, and, we don't know for certain what will happen in the future, but we know that, if you're somebody that's looking for the perfect rate, what is the perfect rate to you? And what if you never see that rate? Because there have been, as often as people put out their predictions for what's going to happen, they revise them. So there really isn't like a timing of it. You kind of have to figure out like with what you've got now, what your motivation is and what works for you. For sellers, I think letting them know there has like things have shifted a little bit, and to kind of be prepared for that and really look at the comps and talk about different strategies for how to make their property stand out and for and for each seller and for each person out there, there's going to be different, I guess, like things that need to happen for the sale to be considered successful for them, right? So is it speed? Is it getting like the, as much as they can out of the sale? But, like there's different things that you need to line up and then just kind of talk to them about how to get there. So I think real estate is something that is always changing to some degree, and you need to know what's going on and then how to help your clients achieve their goals.
So that is really well said. And here's the data that backs it up. So Skylar Olson, she's the chief economist for Zillow. She came out in a report published on Wednesday that said the effects of the rate lock owners holding on to their existing homes and low rate mortgages appear to be lessening over time, which I agree with. I mean, you're seeing some people that you moved just a couple years ago and they're ready to get into another house. And even as most outstanding mortgages have a rate well below what's currently being quoted on the market, this is easing. And she went on to add, home sellers are returning to the market but finding buyers hesitating. So you talked about getting your home to stand out, right? Well, now you got to do that. You have to market these homes. You got to launch them the right way. And fresh listings of houses rose significantly over the last year, outpacing sales and cooling buyer competition and home price appreciation. Zillow forecasts further price relief on the horizon, further injections of inventory, and mortgage rates expected to stay elevated through the year should temper competition. Now, I'll disagree there that I think this is going to be very local in terms of where the market is, because the Northeast, like we're in a very different space than the Sun Belt. We mentioned Florida and Texas and these other places. I mean, you can see the inventory rising a lot more there. We're up like 10.5% year over year in the greater Philadelphia area, not like exactly 10.5% year over year compared to this time last year. So that being said, we're talking about before the show, some listings that our team has that we got to work them a little more. You got to talk to the sellers more. It takes like 3 weeks to sell a home instead of 3 days. And that's still very low. Like 3 weeks pre-2020, I'm like, awesome. We did a great job. This is fantastic. So this is something that's really important. So, I mean, what's your reaction been from your clients that you're working with right now, Sarah, that like you're having these conversations with them? I know you're doing this right at the initial meeting. Like, are they open-minded to it? Are they receptive? Are you getting any pushback? Because that's always the tough part about this.
Both.
Okay, good answer, right? I think that's real life.
So I have some that are very receptive, and I've had the conversation with them too, where it's like because oftentimes there's, somebody selling their house and then their friends and family members who are not involved in real estate are saying things like, what, your house hasn't sold yet? It's been up for a week. Like, what's wrong? Da, 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 da. And, just kind of explaining, like, this is where we're at. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is just take a breath. Like, the immediate reaction, I think, is usually to be like, all right, so what? Do we need to do a price adjustment? Do we need to hold another open house? Do we need to do this or do that or do that? This is like a weird time of year right now also where school has now let out. People are doing those initial vacations maybe before they have to get back for certain camps and for certain things. So my advice is not to overread into, like, if a house hasn't sold in 2 weeks, it doesn't mean that it's not going to, and paying attention to the feedback, like making sure that it's still continuing to get views on the MLS, on Zillow, that you're still getting showings booked. As long as those things are happening, it's still relative. It still has a shot. Where you need to kind of, reevaluate some things is if you're no longer getting showing requests, you're no longer getting phone calls from agents. There's no interest. It's not ticking up on any of the sites for views or anything like that. Well, at that point, it's a little bit stale. Something needs to be done. But especially for some of the more unique properties, it can take a little bit of time for them to have the right buyer come in and just take a breath.
Well, and that's really good advice. I mean, if you look at the suburban markets, right, and I'm talking Chester, Delaware, Montgomery counties, Bucks County, the average time on the market's trending around 30 days. That's the average, right? So there's homes, half of them, taking longer than 30 days. In Philadelphia, it's around 64. So you got to know your market first and foremost, and that's the stuff you got to communicate to sellers because they're getting impatient. Well, hey, we're well below the average. 21 days, like that's not a bad number. And you're talking about activity. Like that's where having those phone calls with your clients every single week on the listing side is so important. I would guarantee you're going to hear from me once a week. Like that's
Right.
part of that's how our team operates. And if you're not doing that, because you don't need to talk every day.
No.
Unless there's like a lot going on, but that means you're probably selling the place.
Right.
So, and especially as you climb in price, there's going to be less activity. It's more letting people know what's going on is important. And I like let's see what happens when you get to the market. We're not in this environment where every home's selling at a pretty incredible price. And it's still happening with a lot of homes. Mm-hmm. We've seen some of those, but it's also not happening with some others. And some houses aren't going to be for everybody.
Right.
You got like a busy road, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe the floor plan's not quite right. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people that don't even look at those properties.
Right. And then I guess also important to know from the beginning what is the most important to your client out of this, that like as I kind of like touched on earlier, like is it we got to get this sold immediately? Mm-hmm. Is it like what is it? And then having that weekly touch point in case if it changes over time. Like maybe at first they're thinking, we don't need to sell right away. We're going to try and like, this is what's important to us. And if you do start to accumulate weeks on market, things could change. And better to have that touch point and find mm-hmm. out like, and that's okay if what you need out of the sale changes, but being able to just kind of gauge where they're at so that you can best like help them. Here's what the top stressors for sellers are, according to a Zillow report. Just to give everyone a perspective, some perspective here. 56% of sellers are stressed about not knowing if the home will sell within the desired time frame. So timing can be more important than price in some cases. They got to get somewhere by a certain time. 53% worry about not being able to sell the home for the price that they want. So timing is a little ahead of price. 52% were stressed out about an offer falling through. Think about how that disrupts everything. Like you got a plan. We're moving. You recently moved. I did a couple years ago as well. You want all that stuff to kind of line up. Like it's a real pain in the butt. 51% specifically found it stressful to time the sale of their current home with the purchase of a new one. High degree of difficulty there. More than half, 52% worry about making improvements to get the home ready. So what to do to prep it. And maintaining a market-ready home is stressful for 43% of sellers, and 39% stress about leaving the home for tours and open houses. No one really talks about that, but selling your home kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. So the more advice you can give people up front, like, hey, we're going to make this part easy. Here's our plan with showings. How much notice do you need? Mm-hmm. Before it was you had to get out of the house entirely. Yeah. Remember when the overnight notice was like a thing? Mm-hmm. Because you have like kids or a dog, or you got to get the house ready, or maybe you work from home, which is more prominent now than it was 4 years ago. So these are the things that agents should be talking about with their clients, but also in this environment where we're seeing inventory rise, we're seeing rates kind of being persistently high, persistently in the sixes. I don't even like the word persistently high because mm-hmm. they're in that, like, I saw 6.5 yesterday getting quoted. Yeah. So that's really what this means, is that this is kind of the market that we saw before the pandemic. And, everything Jerome Powell said, this is where we are. They're not going to do anything rash anymore. I think they're in wait and see mode now, which I like. And what one of the analysts said here after Jerome Powell spoke is that just because we're seeing numbers retreat, the Fed's not going to declare victory right away. They got to see a couple months of this trend, right, where the CPI data comes in a little lower. So that's why we're going to see probably just one rate cut this year. I mean, I think they want to see sustained inflation cooling, because that jobs report kind of threw everyone for a loop. It was going the other way for a while, and then bam, it came out, and it was way, way above, 80,000 jobs above. So we've talked about all this here. What do you think agents should be doing with their clients right now? Like, what's your parting shot here before we break to the next segment and talk about the DOJ, Sarah? I mean, I think, as always, find out the motivation from your clients, because that's going to be a big indicator of whether or not they're going to transact, So I agree with that. Find out the motivation, and then be on the offensive. I think for your buyers, like, don't just set them up on a search and then wait for them to call you. Be looking for the properties that you can then individually shoot them and say, and at least try to like engage in a conversation about it. For like, what do you think about this one? Give me your feedback, so that you can kind of continue to narrow in on things. And then I think at the same time, don't be afraid, unless if somebody's like, I must be in this school district or this neighborhood, don't be afraid to maybe send them something that's different than all the other things you've been sending them. Because if you're sending them all the same type of property and for whatever reason they're not excited about it or they're not trying to do anything about it, present them with another option.
Yeah, I love the taking control and playing offense, Sarah. I mean, you can tell we've been hanging out a lot because I say this all the time, right? And it's, no one wants an order taker in a market like this. Like,
right.
That may have been okay for like a 24-month period when it was really hot. That's not the norm in real estate. So I'm not sure if these homes are going to be for you, but they're close. Mm-hmm. You want to go maybe drive by them first, see what you think of the neighborhood. 50% of buyers want their agent to help them find a home, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not just send them on what's on the MLS. And you're in a lot of trouble if you interview against one of our team members because we tell people, hey, most agents have a 3-point plan. They talk to you once, they put you on a property email list, and then they wait for you to let them know what you want to see. Like that's a very real thing. So I like that. And also I would say play offense with your sellers. And like you never want to have the seller calling you.
Right.
That's not a good situation unless they're like calling you back. It's more, let's be proactive with the communication. Let them know what's going on. Here's what the options are so that we can get ahead of this. And whether it's a price adjustment, whether it's staying the course, like you're talking about, certainty is built, is something that builds trust. And certainty means people know when to expect to hear from you. So I think that's really good advice there across the board, and just bring solutions and bring options. Like we're not the decision makers in these transactions, but when you tell people, hey, here's our options, what do you want to do? That's so much of a better way to run your business. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We are talking about the DOJ and the MLS Pin. We've got another controversy brewing here among the MLSs and the NAR settlement next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Mortgage America is an equal housing lender, MLS 128.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
For the best local mortgage service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. To learn more, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized local service you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America is an equal housing lender, NMLS 128501.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to be talking about the MLS Pin. This is a Massachusetts MLS pushing back against the DOJ and their view of the NAR settlement. We've also got Aaron Hall coming in from Painter 1 of the Main Line. He's an excellent contractor in the area, someone everyone should be aware of, very reliable. We'll talk about them at the last segment here. If you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and that way you can stay up to date in terms of what's going on with the show here. So the MLS Pin. This has been really interesting. My laptop just died. Let me just pull this up. I don't want to get these quotes wrong. So the MLS Pin, they've come out and they've basically spoken out against the DOJ, which is incredible to me. This is the 4th MLS that has done this. And there was a statement about the proposed ban the DOJ had on having any sort of commissions on there. And the MLS Pin last Monday urged a district judge to reject the Department of Justice's arguments against the settlement with the home seller plaintiffs. And they went on to basically say this kind of limits free speech. It might be unconstitutional. Very, very aggressive article and statement from the MLS Pin. So what do you think about all this, Sarah? I mean, this is the fourth MLS in like 2 weeks and a very influential one. You got the Northwest MLS, Bright, and the CRMLS are both offering concessions field. The Northwest MLS opted out of the settlement.
Did anything happen with that yet? Like, did they?
Nothing's happened.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think they will continue. Like, this might not be the last one, you know? Like, just like in the lawsuit itself, there were all these like things that piled onto it. I think we're going to kind of see the same situation when kind of coming back and saying, we don't agree with this.
Well, and you know, the MLS Pin, it's a broker-owned MLS. It's a little different than the ones that are tied in with NAR. And here's what the statement was. They went on to say DOJ's policy position not only goes far beyond what antitrust law requires, it also creates an antitrust problem for MLS Pin where none existed. MLS Pin cannot enter into an agreement to ban the publication of free market compensation offers without offending the very antitrust principles DOJ claims to be protecting. To impose such a ban through a federal injunction would also suppress speech that is protected under the First Amendment. So these guys are not messing around here. Like, this is not we disagree with this sort of statement. And the MLS Pin then points out that the DOJ is not saying that sellers should not pay buyer brokers, but rather that the preemptive offers to pay should be entirely restricted. They go on to quote, DOJ never denies the sellers have the right to compensate buyer brokers. It only advocates arbitrary restraints on the communication of compensation offers according to the filing. That's from the DOJ. And, you know, this goes on and on here. So, I mean, what I take away from this is that there's a lot of people standing up and saying that, hey, we don't agree with this, and this was working fine. And there wasn't while there was a forced offer, now you can offer zero out. Like, I get those things, but you're telling a seller they can't sell their home in a certain way, which would restrict free. I mean, they're saying they're the middleman here. The MLS is not actually the decision maker here. The seller's the decision maker. The buyer's the decision maker. It's a pretty interesting argument. And they went on to point out that the current administration also directed the FTC to look into this. The Federal Trade Commission. And they said here that they share responsibility over antitrust with the DOJ to exercise its rulemaking authority in areas such as unfair occupational licensing restrictions, unfair tying practices, or exclusionary practices in the brokerage or listing of real estate, and any other unfair industry-specific practice that substantially inhibits competition. So a lot of finger-pointing here, Sarah. How do you think this goes?
I mean, I think that's like the smartest thing to do if you're going to fight back is to go in with all you've got, right?
Guns blazing,
yeah, like no like pussyfooting around. I don't know if you're allowed to say that. I don't know if that's offensive or not. But like just rather than like being like, you know, slowly coming up when you're seriousness or you're pushing back, go in full force and you know, give it your best arguments and then see how it plays out. Now, with it's August 17th that all of this is officially supposed to go into play. Do you think if more MLSs push back, but because nothing happens super quickly, would it be more likely that they push that date back or they set fast to that date and then on the back end, people try to get it changed?
See, that's a great question. I mean, these are kind of separate suits here too, because the MLS Pin's not tied into NAR, right? So they're brokerage owned. So, I mean, I think we're going to see how this plays out because this concessions field that Bright has, and this, I mean, it sounds like the same thing. Yeah. Like it's no different. So I'm interested to see how that's going to go.
Right.
I also know internally, like we have a lot of listings, right? We got like 40, 50 listings at a given time. I know we're developing systems that, hey, we're going to be 100% compliant with this because I'm not messing around with this thing. No. Like, and it's so, how do we communicate that? And what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to have a brokerage-owned site. But here's the problem. How many times do you get calls from agents that it says something like literally right in the MLS and they totally ignore it?
Right.
And
Right. The first move is just to call versus like look.
Yeah, reading apparently is optional for real estate agents. You don't know how to read things and understand them. So that's going to be an issue. I don't care what anyone says. Like think about this listing you got coming up in media, right? How many calls if you were to put an over-under on number of calls, number of showings, forget number of calls, I would put it like 35.5 in that first weekend.
Yeah, I would agree.
So it's a good line. Maybe we'll take some bets on this here. Not that that's legal or anything, but we'll.
I'm down.
All right. And so 35 agents calling you. Are you paying a fee? Are you paying a fee? That's hours of work.
I mean, honestly, I feel like I would change my voicemail to just be like, hey, if you're calling about this, we are.
Yeah, well, I think that's a smart move. And, then how do you do that as an organization is the next step, because it can eat up your time when you have a hot listing anyway. I mean, just think about the last time you had to review like 5 offers on a product. Like it's a lot of work getting it all squared away, sending it to the seller, navigating it all, and you don't want to overcomplicate it for them. So I see, like, there's a practicality standpoint nobody's talking about here.
Right.
Like for the agent that's selling 3 homes a year, sure, go for it.
Right.
For a company like ours, or, I mean, you're going to sell 20, 30 homes this year. That's still a lot of work. I mean, that happens all the time. So there's a challenge there that I've got with this. And I think you're going to see more and more people push back against this. Now, the other question I got is this DOJ investigation was opened back up under the new administration once the election happened. So let's say the election goes the other way this time. Do you think this goes away? All this DOJ stuff? Because, I mean, they're saying the DOJ was instructed by the current administration to look into these areas.
Yeah. But I mean, once they start looking into stuff, well, I mean, I guess if they're specifically told to stop, would they? But like, I mean, once they start, would they just, or maybe they'd be happy to stop because they're like, we don't feel like doing this anymore.
I don't know. I mean,
like, I don't know what, how bad they want to do it, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of, I mean, and, it seems like there's a lot of this going on. And for the people that are pro-business out there, because this isn't meant to be political, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of feel this way now with what's going on the past few years. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, what's going to happen with MLS Pin here? They're going to go ahead and publish compensation. You think more MLSs are going to do this, is what I'm hearing.
Well, if you're allowed to do the concession field, then that solves it. Like, if you're just looking to solve the problem, and right now I would say the problem is being able to, at like a pace that makes sense, get the information out to everybody when you have a listing, what the compensation will be, so that agents know prior to bringing their client through whether or not they need to account for paying the fee or not. Because like the fee needs to be paid, so being able to break that down. So as long as the information is readily available in a way that makes sense, now maybe it'll take people a minute to adjust like how they're looking at the MLS there for, all right, compensation or concession. Like, I don't know. Maybe it'll take people a minute to figure that out. But as long as the information is there, then I don't know that there's any reason to go back. Although, what I would want to know is for the concession field, is it a range? Is it like, are you able to put in? Because I think
it's $1 or a percentage in Bright.
Oh, you can put percentage, then boom. Like, I feel like, all right, call it something different, and like, way to spend a lot of like time, energy, money, lawsuit time to just change the name of the field. But like, fine, like, I don't care if you call it a concession instead of a compensation. But as long as like people are able to get that information easily, at that point, then I guess there's no point in pushing back, in my opinion.
I think the MLSs are going to get challenged here. I mean, because this is the same thing. Like,
right.
I mean, it's
right. So would they allow just changing the name of it to be a solution?
That's what I don't get here. Like, and if that actually flies, then what was all this for? Like,
right.
I mean, so Michael Ketchmark could get paid. Was that the end game here?
Yeah.
So, when you mentioned, has anyone else opted out, right? Today is the deadline for the opt-in on the NAR settlement. Okay. So we're going to find out if anyone's opting in or opting out. Like Redfin opted in, Compass agreed to do some stuff. The 20th or the 21st, the DOJ is expecting, this is this week, is expected to update its position on the NAR settlement and two other real estate issues. And August 17th, MLS and buyer agents agreement rules go into full effect. So, there's and then on this Inman article they quote, for those hoping that the MLS's tech companies and individual brokers and agents will be able to develop workarounds, including posting commission information on websites or posting seller contribution info instead of commissions. There's concern that the DOJ could view any information shared anywhere verboten. I got to look up what that means. So I'm imagining what that means.
Forbidden.
Well, yeah, this is some Latin word. It means forbidden. Yes, it doesn't. That's good work. You nailed it.
Thanks.
Good. I didn't know that. So
It was a guess.
it was a good guess, right? So I think that's so the next couple of days are going to be pretty interesting with this suit, especially if the DOJ is going to update its position, because you've got these MLSs coming out now and they're saying this stuff. Now, I also argue the MLSs have a lot more leverage than NAR itself because, you got the MLS Pin. They're contending an evaluation of the proposed class settlement doesn't require mini trial or fiercely disputed antitrust issues, but they want to deal with, there's all this legal stuff going back and forth. What's going to be really interesting is if the DOJ says you can or can't do these concessions, because Bright already rolled it out.
Right. So, and I guess they'd have to, does it say when they would have to make the decision on saying whether or not they're going to allow it?
So there's an expected update happening later this week.
Oh,
so
okay. That's part of that. Okay.
June 20th and 21st. So this is from there was comments made by the DOJ attorney Jessica Leal during a May 21st status hearing in the Nozelek case, and she indicated the regulator would neither support or oppose the NAR settlement agreement, which led to the implementation of the sweeping rule changes this summer. And they did add that they don't want to see offers of compensation made anywhere. So that's been a sticking point for them. I don't see how you're able to do business like this. Right. If you want to talk about transparency, buyers should know before they walk in, because there's going to be some agents that don't verify anything, and then it's going to be a big surprise for their clients when they get in there. I would book that right now.
Yep. Well, and if their whole point is this isn't to protect, posting the compensation is not to protect the agent. It's at the end of the day, the seller needs a buyer. The buyer needs to find a house in which to buy, right? For any transaction in real estate to happen. So you need that information going in, and by not making it easily available, that's the opposite of transparency and the opposite of being helpful.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be a secret whether where the compensation's coming from.
If you want it to be transparent, put
it all out there.
Yeah, put it all. I couldn't agree more. And so the DOJ came out yesterday and they responded to a new court filing stating that a rehearing of the NAR settlement is not warranted. And they argue that the 3-judge panel's fact-bound decision is correct and doesn't conflict with any decision of the Supreme Court or any appeals. So, they're supporting this. Now, the vice president of communications for NAR said that they're going to continue to champion their members, home buyers. Great. And they're working to ensure the DOJ is held to the terms of the 2020 agreement. That's the thing that no one's talking about. They already agreed that everything was fine anyway. So... Right. Not fine. They already agreed to changes, and it's they're saying that there's no rehearing needed of that particular that decision where it was signed, everyone agreed to it. So the DOJ, something changed internally with the DOJ. That's very clear. I think with the theory that the new administration had something to do with it is probably accurate. Whether or not whatever side of the aisle you're on, when something's agreed to and signed, it should be honored. That's basic contract law.
Right.
Stay tuned, everybody. That's what I'll say.
Tuned.
This is our NAR settlement segment that we just have every single week here because it's that big news. So why don't we take a quick break? We're going to come back. Painter One, I believe, and Aaron Hall, he's on his way up here now. So let's take a quick break. We'll talk about him next on Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over $165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
You shouldn't have to deal with all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time homebuyer programs. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
Mortgage America's equal housing lender. MLS 1285001.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over $165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us, it's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
All right. We are back on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon, and we've got Aaron Hall here from Painter One of the Main Line. Very excited to talk with him. Sarah and I both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And if you get some value out of this next segment, it's important having trusted vendors like Aaron and his company so you can refer them to people, especially as a real estate agent. You get some value out of this. You like what you hear. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. So, Aaron, grateful to have you on, man.
I appreciate it.
Just talk right into the mic here. We didn't get you any prep. You got here right on time.
Yep, thank
this guy's
you.
out doing work and helping people. So tell us a little bit about your company. I mean, I know we've worked with you guys in the past, but give everyone the breakdown of Painter One and what you guys do and what you specialize in.
Yeah, sure. So Painter
Nothing like
One
raising
is mainly a residential and commercial painting contractor. We're right outside of Malvern, Pennsylvania, but we serve Chester County, Montgomery County, Delaware County. It's myself right now as owner and also one lead salesperson. And also we just, in the last 30 days, hired our project manager, which created a great opportunity for us to just continue to grow, bring value to customers, and focus on the finished product for everyone.
So running a business like yours, I think, is tough for a lot of reasons. One is contractors, like real estate agents, they get a bad rap because for whatever reason. So I know your company's designed to kind of avoid all that with like scheduling, communication. You have multiple people in the office. So tell us a little bit more about like the client experience, because we've referred you to our clients and they've been super, super happy. But I don't think a lot of people have contractor experiences like that.
Sure. So yes, we certainly are trying to set ourselves apart from everyone else in that sense. We really, really drive communication, thorough proposals so that there's a clarity to what is expected from us as the contractor and what is expected from the client as well. So, we really dive in at the initial conversation, make sure that we understand what the expectation is, what the goal is, and then we really outline that in a really thorough proposal. And then once, we move forward, there's a dedicated project manager, dedicated crew foreman, and that same process is just followed through till the completion of the job. Communication, progress reports, daily progress reports. We're big on taking photos, making sure that we capture everything before, during, and after. And the key thing is once we start, we finish through. If there's a certain deadline, we adapt and adjust to make sure that we meet those needs.
What kind of lead time do people typically need to order, or not order, but book a job?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Really, what I feel, and I learned from the days of COVID, was I don't want to just be the only one that knows how to estimate. Mm-hmm. So anyone that comes in the Painter One as my business is, they'll learn their current role, but they're also going through steps to be certified. I basically certify them to be able to estimate. So if I can't make an estimate because I'm at a radio show, someone calls in and says, "Hey, I need an estimate right now." There's 2 other people in the office that can do that. So, and we always have someone on the phone responding to all the leads coming in, so we can really turn it over in less than 12 hours. Typically, if it's a very simple proposal, we can do it right there on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's having multiple people in the office. I mean, the big challenge, I think, with a lot of contractors, it's like a one-man show, and you got to do it, or a one-woman show, or one-person show, and you do it all yourself. But when you have like a staff and like communication, like I love picture updates, right? Like your customers must love that stuff because then they can see what's going on. They're not stressing out about you doing the job. What's the reaction been from the customer side?
It is. So I actually had this happen a few weeks ago. I never met the client. It was a rush request for interior painting project. They had a lockbox on the door. I said, okay, you know what? I can dart down there now, take a look at it, put a proposal together, send you everything. She said, call me if you have any questions. I said, okay. I went down there, did my measurements, took photos, then outlined everything in the photos. Paint here, don't paint here. This is what I see. This is what I suggest. I sent her the proposal. She sent right back, this is beautiful. I never experienced this. I didn't have to get on the phone and answer questions. You knew exactly what needed to be done, what we were looking for. How soon can you start? So that's really the key to the software that we have for the photos. Really gives us that in-person feeling when we can't be there in person, but it also just really cleans up that expectation for everyone.
And so you have like a variety of services here. I'm on your website right now. So there's like interior stuff, exterior, commercial, texture removal, share a little bit about that because I don't think people realize everything a painter can actually do.
Yeah, so we certainly are focusing on the residential repaints. So we really our key is making sure that we do each of these steps thoroughly. So interior wise, we know how to prep the walls before we paint, and that's really crucial to the painting process. Throwing the paint on is easy. So we really make sure that the customer understands that process, what we're going in and doing there. When it comes to exterior, same thing. We're doing things differently with the pressure washing. We're not actually pounding away on the surfaces. We're using chemicals to help get the dirt, the debris, the grease, all those things off that would cause a chemical reaction during the painting process. Cabinets. Cabinets are a whole different ballgame. That's the biggest one that you have to prep. You really have to know the products. Make sure you're priming. Make sure you're sanding before you do things. Dry time is very important there. Exterior decks. Biggest thing there, moisture. So we do a moisture reading during that visit to make sure that this deck can actually get stained or painted before we actually do it, or we're causing problems for ourselves down the road. So there's a lot of back-end things that we do sometimes during the process of the proposal, and then sometimes we'll get into a project and we'll identify something and we'll have to go research it, or we'll refer to some of our specialists at Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore and say, hey, we need some help with this, and we're not afraid to do that and share that with the customer.
Well, I'm sure that there are customers of a wide range where some are like, come in, do it all. And then there's others that maybe are like, well, can I do some of the prep before you get out there to save costs? And have you had situations where they tried to do that and then actually ended up having to pay more because you had to correct their prep?
We certainly have probably run across that. Again, that all starts in the estimating process where we really clarify everything and really outline those expectations that say, hey, if you want us to just come in and paint, then this is what we expect and we need from you before we can do that. And we'll probably put it in our proposal or estimate and say, upon starting the project, we're going to review to make sure everything's in prep condition for us to do our job correctly.
Yeah.
And then we'll have those conversations if we need to help them out and adjust those things to make sure that everything's done correctly, then we do that.
So, I mean, you got this killer team around you. You have a great process. So, when it comes to, like you said, you're really focusing on the residential side. Tell us a little bit more about like how you got into this business, because I don't think like you're running a business, and I don't think a lot of people in your line of work actually run it's no different than real estate. You got people that just kind of go and they paint houses or go and they sell houses, but you're running a business. So, like, what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, so I learned really from working for a lot of small business owners through college, really through high school, through college. My own family owned a hardware business and things like that. That it was very important to have someone working on the business, growing it, making sure that every step is being checked and balanced all the time, creating SOPs, creating CRM systems, creating everything that would make your business just run if you went on vacation tomorrow or whatever. If you stepped out, you got sick, whatever it took. So I always liked that part of it. I always wanted to own my own business. My wife and I, were in a very good point in our life where she knew this was a dream of mine. She said, okay, we can do this. Go ahead and pursue it. So we went out and we did it. And I'm enjoying this part of becoming a business owner, experiencing that. There's ups and downs, but it's very fun when everything's working correctly.
There's definitely ups and downs in business. I mean, I think it's every day is like a roller coaster. So, I'm looking at you got a ton of reviews here. So, I mean, what's the best way? And is the best way to go to the website for people to get in touch with you?
It is right now. That's certainly the best way. Once they log in there, they put in their information, it's going to go right to our CRM system, alert us immediately, and we'll reach out.
So it's painter1, the number 1.com/main-line. So painter1.com/main-line. Best way to get in touch with Aaron and his team. So what's like the wildest situation you walked into in a house? Because I know there's been some crazy stuff you've seen going into people's houses that we've seen. What about, you're going into people's houses. Crazy stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's going to tell us after the show.
Yeah, I would say really it just, I had one that was just, unfortunately just had a ton of cats in it. So I think as realtors, you've definitely come across houses like that where cats can create a whole different obstacle for you. So, again, had to have those conversations to overcome that. We had to work with the cats in the house. So we really just kind of quarantined things, broke it up into sections, and got ourselves through it.
Yeah.
So you had to quarantine the cats. Yeah. So we were at an appointment one time, and the woman lost her cat. And Sarah and I were there, and then she's very stressed out about that. You want to explain this? This was probably the worst cat situation we've run into. Yes,
we felt so bad. Like we went out to do a listing consultation. We're there for quite a while, and upon our arrival there, she could not find the cat, and it's like supposed to be an inside cat. And so throughout like the course of the meeting, every 10 minutes or so, it was just like, oh my gosh, like where's this cat? Where's this cat? I felt terrible. As we were getting ready to leave, she was like, oh wait, here, I forgot to show you this coat closet. And she opened the door and the cat ran out. So we were like, good.
We were worried we weren't going to get the listing because of the cat. Yeah. That's how bad that was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So it's painter, the number 1.com/main-line. So Aaron, tell us a little bit about you and your background. So, you said you worked for a lot of small business owners. How did you get into like painting? Like how did that become the business that you ended up starting up? Because it's obviously doing well, very successful.
Yeah, sure. So father, grandfather, all worked for NVR Ryan Homes,
Okay.
A home building up and down the East Coast. And so I was always around new construction. Outside of college, I continued in their footsteps with a small builder and really just kind of gravitated towards the drywall and painting into things. And then, through researching and things like that, really saw that painting is something that's not going away, always is needed. Fewer people are wanting to do these types of activities on their own. So it really just kind of set me up to kind of go that direction.
Awesome. Well, I think that, the best businesses solve a problem. And I don't know about you, Sarah. I hate painting. I would never want to do it. It takes forever and I screw it up and then I have to call you anyway. So I'm right there with you. So Aaron Hall, painter, thenumber1.com/main-line. That's where to get in touch with them. We've had many clients use them. Super happy, high expectations. These are the people you want to call. That's it for this week's episode. You want to follow Sarah. She's at Ty_TyTime. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD, both on Instagram. And we'll be back next week on WWDB 860 AM.